So this talk is entitled Cooking at Shopify, although I'm going to make it a little bit more generic and talk a bit about DevOps in general at Shopify as opposed to just cooking with Chef, because DevOps is a lot more than just one tool, and the main tool we use is not open source at the moment either, so I don't want to bore you with details of something you can't see, other than to talk about it. So we've seen a couple shows of hands already, but just to start off, how many people here consider themselves a DevOps engineer? You're all wrong. There's no such role as a DevOps engineer. Thank you. All right. So we'll be talking a little bit about DevOps. I'm glad there's a split here between people who consider themselves developers and ops people. Hopefully the developers can pick up a couple tips and the ops can heckle me later, and you can swap that around too if you want. Also, this is going to be a bit of a hybrid talk. We've had some tools talks, some culture talks. This is a little bit both about how we make stuff work at Shopify. So I want to thank MountainWest, first of all. Mike and Pat, you guys put on an awesome conference, and I'm really thrilled to be here. And also just want to take a minute and remember Jim Wyrick. 1 month ago today, we lost Jim, and he was, in my opinion, the original Ruby hero, or at least my original Ruby hero, and his impact, both directly and indirectly on me, was pretty profound, and I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. So, moment for Jim. So, sorry, that looks a little fuzzy and washed, but hopefully you can read it. So real quick, I'm going to give a little bit of background about myself, about Shopify the company, Shopify the platform, who runs Shopify, and how we run Shopify. So I'm Phil Cohen. Slide's a little tough to read, but that's an image from our internal employee directory. Work on the operations team at Shopify. Phil.Cohen at Shopify.com if you want to track me down. You don't get my phone number today. I work remotely. I live in the Lake Tahoe area of California, working my way towards ultimate mage status, blow mage status maybe. And I joined, this image is a little bit out of date. I've been with Shopify about 11 months. And something that you can't see on there, but that we'll come back to, is kind of next to where it says I joined. That says about 48% of the company, Shopify, is joined after me, which, considering the company's been around since about 2004, and I've only been there for 11 months, is a pretty incredible growth trajectory. I've been working with Chef for a little over 5 years now. Since it was in its infancy, I've been doing ops and DevOps and that sort of thing a lot longer than that. And I care about things like automation, reliability, testing, and moving fast, which can be roughly categorized maybe as continuous delivery. I care about that in both the application and the infrastructure standpoint. We'll be talking a little bit about the infrastructure today. But pretty much I'm a lazy engineer, and I'm working in the ops domain currently. So a little bit about Shopify. Shopify's mission is to make commerce better. Primarily, we're a commerce platform, and most people probably know us for our e-commerce solution. You can set up a web shop. Recently, we have also launched point of sale, mobile sales, mobile payments, Shopify payments, a number of other solutions that all fall under the commerce umbrella, with the goal of making things easier to sell and share. Shopify is also an established code base, so for the Rails devs in the house, it's one of the oldest and most continuously developed code bases for a Rails app out there. It's over 9 years old. I guess that makes it legacy these days. Started pre-1.0 Rails, and as of today, we're running on the latest Ruby 2.1, Rails 4. Had been running on a single server, and we're not anymore. Quick little bit of trivia as I was looking through the Git history. Very first Git commit message is, whoops, bring it in from SVN. So it's a legacy app, it happens. So Shopify is large these days. Scale is about perspective, so I would say large is a good term, at least compared to most Rails apps. We're rapidly approaching 100,000 shops on the platform, closing in on $4 billion of gross merchant volume, almost 72 million products sold across the platform. These days we have about 400 employees. The other day when I looked, I think it was 393, so close enough. And in December, we closed a $100 million round, Series C round of funding. So the scale in which we're working, both in terms of traffic, people, funding, is pretty large. We do move a fair amount of traffic. Over Black Friday, Cyber Monday in 2013, Shopify was the #3 platform for unique IP traffic behind Amazon and eBay, beating out Walmart, Sony, Best Buy, and some others. So we definitely have a fair amount of traffic. On a quiet day, we sustain over 100,000 RPM. That bursts up to well over 1 million during flash sales or load testing or other network anomalies. We did also, we had a merchant this year have an ad-on during the Super Bowl, and we saw an 18,000% roughly increase in traffic for that shop. So that was pretty interesting and impressive. And in addition to being large, we're also growing. So back to the 48% have joined after me within the last 11 months. If you look at that little link on the side that says join graph, you can see sort of the accelerating rate at which people are coming on board. Also, now that you're excited, we're hiring, so come see me after if anybody's interested in a job. I've also got some stickers and happy to chat about whatever. So this growth rate presents some interesting challenges that we'll get to. So that was the company, Shopify, the platform. So I mentioned we have our e-commerce platform, point of sale, et cetera. These days, it takes more than a single server, and we have lots of different pieces in there. So just for some perspective, what we refer to as Tier 1, which are services that need to be running to provide checkouts and sort of provide our core functionality. We have the main Shopify application, which is the core app, management, reporting, et cetera, that you see when you log in. All of our API, everything that runs sort of the core systems. Runs primarily on bare metal with several hundred servers. Within the next few months, we're bringing a second data center online with full replication of that, so that will be doubling as well. We have a system we call Imagery, which sits behind our CDN, and so when we resize product images, et cetera, things like that, that happens real time on the fly. Image gets processed and then dropped on a CDN. That runs on a cluster in the Amazon cloud. We have a large search cluster currently running Elasticsearch, which is kind of like a database, but a really needy one. And we run, I hesitate to say all the databases, but primarily Shopify runs on MySQL. There's some interesting talks from Big Ruby and some other conferences if you want to look up about how we shard MySQL and run that interesting cluster. But we also run Postgres, SkyDB, Hadoop, Vertica, MongoDB, many other pieces, all required to get various aspects of the system running. So there's a fair amount of moving parts. Also on Tier 1, we have Card Server, which is basically our PCI environment where we handle the credit card processing. It's a small app that's separated from the rest of the infrastructure, which makes keeping security, auditing, things like that a little easier, a little safer. It's got limited access, in terms of who can access it, and all of our monitoring, logging, et cetera, things like that are all also duplicated and isolated to work in that environment. We've got a Tier 2 platform, which is not to say it's any less important, but these are things that won't directly affect a checkout or prevent a sale from happening, but are basically required for a normal operation of the site. The Shopify platform, so to speak, has an app store, a theme store, an expert store where you can find people who can help you set up your shop or build custom integrations, forums, a number of other sort of Tier 2 properties that are required for keeping the site running. And then we also have sort of tier 3 and internal, which are things like our international brochure sites, partner portals. In Asia, we're partnered with Singtel, for example, who handles onboarding in Singapore. Our gurus and support people, we have an internal phone system, for example, built on Twilio, ticketing systems, our data analysis and reporting for business intelligence, if there's such a word, research, A/B experiments, that sort of thing. Development tools, which is our ship it tool, which we use for deployment. Our exception trackers, auth.me, which is a way that we can authorize people into our GitHub account and Google Apps account, et cetera, since we're onboarding at such a rapid rate, and that takes a lot of ops time. And we have a handful of other internal apps as well, Lunchify, Beerify, Unicorn, all sorts of things. There are several hundred applications, many of those requiring clusters, multiple running pieces, et cetera. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with to keep running. Real briefly, I just want to touch on who it is that's keeping this running and how we're broken up. So at a very high level, again, I apologize for the washed nature of this image, but Shopify is broken into some high-level departments. The primary departments with teams dealing with keeping the infrastructure up and running are data, development, and operations. And within those are pretty high-level teams. So even within operations, we have what we call tech ops, which is what you might think of as a sort of standard operations engineer these days. Sec ops, which is our security team, so tech ops, we have about 11 people. In security, I believe we're up to 7 people now. We have a stack team, whose goal is to basically build infrastructure and make it easier to build, integrate, and scale applications internally. So this is a team who's working on things like, in the future, we'd like to be able to use Docker to containerize our applications. The stack team is working on trying to make that happen, and then tech ops would probably be the team to be responsible for rolling that out, sort of thing. We have a performance team who deals with Ruby at a low C level, ugly memcache internals, and all sorts of things like that. And so they need access to the servers and tooling to be able to build reports and kind of do their investigations. And then developers and others are just kind of like a big group mashed in because there are lots of sub-teams within those groups. The others would include like liaisons from other groups who aren't necessarily on an ops team themselves, but have enough requirements and interface with some level of ops regularly enough that there's sort of dedicated communication between the two teams. And among these, everybody shares like SRE responsibilities. So if you think about site reliability engineer, maybe somebody who's going to get the page in the middle of the night when something hits the fan, any of these people might. And part of the goal of that is eliminating tech ops as a bottleneck. It's also sort of in the DevOps spirit of sharing and collaboration and that sort of thing, and allowing developers and other teams and basically the stakeholders to own their piece, which is not to say that that's developers taking over ops or that ops is hands-off and pushing away. I personally believe, and kind of the mantra on the team is that we're there to empower everybody else to do their jobs. And so, as such, the more power we can put in people's hands, the better. So, how do we do that? Because there's a lot of people, even among that developers and others. There are several hundred people, all with access to our cookbooks repository and our ops repo, where we have a number of tools. I know to some people that sounds terrifying. To us, it makes a lot of sense and has actually worked out really well. And so before I get into the actual tooling, I want to talk just a little bit about team dynamics. And I want to talk about this before tooling, because tooling exists to support workflows. Tools are not workflows themselves. And there's a tendency, or it's really easy to fall in a trap of adopting a tool, thinking it's going to help for something, and either using it wrong or changing a workflow to deal with that or whatever. And so for us, it basically starts with the team dynamics, what we want to accomplish, and then we have some tooling to help support that. The theme amongst all of these things is communication, basically, which is a core tenet of the DevOps idea. And so we practice the philosophy, so to speak, of Kaizen, which is based off the Toyota production system. Essentially, it boils down to a continuous improvement philosophy. It's pretty interesting. You can look it up. We use a Kanban board to track sort of what everybody's working on and where those tasks at at a given time. We use a concept called lean coffee, another thing worth looking up and spending some time with, but essentially it's an agenda-less meeting that we have somewhat regularly where everybody gets together, sets the agenda at the beginning, use some sticky notes and sort of democratically vote on what are the topics we want or need to talk about as a group, and then attack those specifically. So kind of a different way to hold meetings a little bit. We have regular one-on-ones, both with our manager, as well as recently we've started doing team peer one-on-ones. This helps to keep context, communication, things like that among the group, and sort of keeps people close and things moving quickly. We've also done some team coaching and having some team conventions, things like checklists, documentation, how we perform code reviews, expectations, things like that. And these are both expectations internally within TechOps, but also expectations across the entire team. Provides a framework for when developers or other teams actually want to work with us to make a change on a cookbook or request something of us. So our conventions that we've adopted on the team are a sense of ownership, meaning both projects you work on, especially you should have a sense of ownership about, but the entire infrastructure as well. Move fast. We do not sit on deploys and do regular updates or things like that. Our main Rails app, the Shopify sort of core app, is deployed anywhere between 20 and 50 times a day. Our infrastructure changes are deployed on average 5 to 20 times per day. And so we move pretty fast. There's a lot of people making a lot of changes to a lot of areas, refactoring, bringing in new functionality, et cetera. But while moving fast, try not to break things. If you do, fail forward, ideally, if we can. And if not, when we have some retrospectives and figure out what went wrong, no blame, add some additional monitoring, metrics, tooling, whatever we need. Spreading knowledge, and so things like the Kanban board, the multiple one-on-ones, et cetera, documentation, various things like that. Again, not just across the ops group, but across the entire company, so people kind of know what's up, or at least where to look or who to contact if something hits the fan. And most importantly, to have confidence, because if there's fear, especially when moving this fast, things are more likely to break. And so ensuring that we have a safety net, avoiding blocking, avoiding creating too much noise, et cetera, is an important thing. So tools we use. First and foremost, this is the Ops Pod at our headquarters in Ottawa. It's a little hard to tell from this picture, but two complete sides are glass so that people can kind of see what's going on and know when they can come and bug us, sort of know what's up. You also see a series of large screens which normally contain a combination of dashboards for things that we care about. There's usually a persistent hangout going on. More than half of the TechOps group is remote. And so you can see my colleague Pete up there on one of the screens. We have a wide-angle camera in the room, and then the persistent hangout going on. And so basically, because I'm remote, I can't walk up and tap somebody on the shoulder, but with this I can say, hey Rob, can we chat for a minute? So lots of open space, lots of room to communicate, lots of screens. And this helps kind of promote our culture and team dynamics. It's very easy to communicate, collaborate, et cetera, in the room like this. So some tools we use include email. Who here uses email? Anybody? Sorry for you, because this is mostly what it looks like. It's kind of hard to read, but that's an inbox full of alerts and various things that come in email. Our goal is that every email that comes in should be actionable. We're not there yet. but we're working on it. If anybody's got any suggestions on that, I would love to hear it. We also use FlowDoc. In chat, you might use Campfire, HipChat, IRC, Slack if it's the new hotness, whatever you're using. But this is a pretty key piece for us. So whereas emails can sit a little more stale, this is sort of a more immediate avenue for communication. It's more real time, more dynamic. And part of the reason we use this is we use it more as like an API integration platform than chat almost. So some of those arrows are pointing out things like CI statuses, deployment notifications, somebody asking Hubot who's on call, exceptions coming in from the app, et cetera. And so we have a number of rooms, each sort of tailored to keep the signal to noise ratio a little more tuned for what we're trying to accomplish. I mentioned Hubot. One of our Hubot's names is Spy. In this case, this is using the tool ShipIt, which I mentioned, which is an internal tool of ours that we use to deploy for the developers. We have a number of other internal tools, such as AuthMe, which I mentioned before, and we've been investing pretty heavily in chat ops. And so right now we have things like we can enable our DDoS countermeasures and other various things. We have a huge wish list of things that we want to get in there. If that's something that interests you, come talk to me. Monitoring and alerting. Those two tools, which nobody can pronounce. We have 5 or 6 different pronunciations across the team, so I'm not even going to try. We use the second one. Unfortunately, back to the email thing, that's what my inbox looks like after 2 days of it chirping at me, so we're working on it. It's not the best tool, but what these do provide is immediate feedback in terms of when things are down, gives us an area to schedule downtime, let people know ahead of time kind of what's going to be happening, and while we'd like to build some more chat ops tooling, for example, around this to eliminate the pain of the horrible dashboard and lots of other awful aspects of using it, it's a pretty critical tool at the moment in our infrastructure to know what's up. We also use Splunk pretty extensively. I don't know if anybody's used Splunk. Common conception is that it's for dumping logs too, which it is. We use Splunk very heavily. Our current license is at 1 terabyte a day, and feels like every month we're bumping that up. But we use Splunk for way more than logs. We have a lot of custom dashboards, alerting, notification, and email, unfortunately, communications that come in to help us support our workflows. And so these are things like log anomalies, which might make sense, payment gateway errors, but also things to help support our workflow. So if a chef client hasn't checked in for some period of time on the server, or there's an environmental change, our reader, writer, VIPs on one of our clusters changed, things like that, this is a way to alert us and handle the communication. We also have a second instance for our card server environment, which I mentioned before. StatsD and Graphite were mentioned before. We use those pretty extensively. We also use Datadog as a service. We're using both at the moment because we have some custom dashboards and tooling and things that still depend on our local Graphite instance. But Datadog has been pretty great. If anybody's looking at that at a very sort of base level, it's kind of like a hosted StatsD. But there's an event stream that people can sort of collaborate around, and it's given us a way to keep context a little closer when an event does occur, to communicate there versus in FlowDoc or over email where there's coordination points to go back and forth. Also, StatsD and Graphite are a little painful for making your own custom dashboards, or can be. Datadog has been a real win sort of for the rest of the team and the rest of the company in a lot of regards. We've been using it for a little over 2 months now, maybe, and actually just a little slightly longer than that, but we have over 120 custom dashboards at the moment. Pretty much every team across the company has a KPI dashboard or several that they monitor, and keeping the state of the infrastructure, the company health, et cetera, all of the various things that we track in here has been pretty crucial. And I mentioned we have some custom tooling as well. This is Stanley, one of our internal dashboard tools. Again, pretty much every team has their own sort of KPIs and things they monitor. We also have dashboards in the lobby for social things and things that might interest visitors, and dashboards all around the office. So the information flow, keeping things flowing, is pretty critical. And all of these things are managed via Chef. And this is roughly, at the moment, sort of our Chef workflow pipeline, if you will. We've recently started using Vagrant, transitioning from Boxen. Vagrant has been a pretty big win. The Stack team that I mentioned before spent quite a bit of time on that. Excuse me. That's enabled our developers to, A, have an environment that's much more like production, and B, ease the transition of getting them working on their own Chef cookbooks and things like that as well. Gives them a local place to get their hands on things, feel free to break it, ask questions, various things like that, and really shorten the lifespan of going through there. We have an internal tool called Cooker, which I'll talk about in a second. Vagrant and Cooker together have basically eliminated the need for development environments for us. So in addition to staging, a lot of companies or a lot of groups will have sort of dev instances in the cloud where they can collaborate or share. That combination has pretty much eliminated the need for that for us. Our staging environment pretty closely mirrors production, and that's where we'll do sort of acceptance testing, run migrations and things like that to see how long they're going to take and what sort of impact it will have on the production system before we go live. And production is pretty self-explanatory. Cooker sits in front of our Chef server and pretty much manages all aspects of our Chef integration and workflow for us. It does that in three primary ways. One is by using environments, and every time a branch is pushed to GitHub or to whatever Git environment, a new Cooker environment is created that mirrors that branch name. Things like data bags, roles, cookbook versions, will be namespaced so that they're isolated from the rest of the environment while things are actually being worked on. When a branch gets merged or deleted, Cooker handles cleaning all of that up. It will, if any nodes have manually been switched environments, Cooker will switch them back, remove the namespaced roles, data bags, et cetera, things like that. Data bags, which we rely on pretty heavily. With Cooker sitting in front, Cooker actually handles sort of our encrypted values and our data bag workflow. So in our Git repository and locally, all of our data bags are available encrypted. We use our standard knife data bag edit, those sort of commands, but Cooker transparently sits in front, intercepts things, handles encryption and other various things for us. And it also provides a testing platform. And so when we push to GitHub, it sits kind of like our CI status and will tell us things like, you're trying to push a cookbook whose version is frozen, or any number of various things that would fail the build, so to speak. Right now, that testing support is pretty basic, but in the future, ideally that would be running things like Food Critic, Chef Spec, Test Kitchen, et cetera, to provide sort of more detailed and better feedback as we go. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit, but here are some examples of our Cooker integration with FlowDoc, kind of keeping everybody in the loop as to what's going on. You can see Cooker failed to build because of a frozen cookbook version that somebody pushed, Cooker uploading a version, etc. We'll also, here's an example of master going up, and so changing nodes, data bags, environments, etc. as required. That's a cleanup example. Again, on the communication front, Cooker also helps us directly on GitHub as well. So we have a lot of things going on at any given time, a lot of people working on a lot of different pieces, and sometimes start something and get pulled away from that. Cooker will helpfully remind us that, hey, you've got a node or some nodes that are a little old. You should probably get those caught up and or get rid of your branch. So this is sort of using our team dynamics to work with our tooling to help reinforce the things that we want, which are move fast, don't break things, and sort of keep it fresh. And the other aspect of Cooker that we use a lot of are knife plugins. So we use the command line a lot. We use knife the way a lot of people might use rake with Rails. It wraps a lot of tools for us. You can see some examples of things that we use knife plugins for up here. There are quite a bit more, and we'll probably use more and more of them. But the command line is a pretty powerful thing. You should use it. So as I got about 30 seconds left, I just want to point out this is the tech ops team at the moment at Shopify. You could be in that square right there that's missing. And I just want to thank the Shopify team because technology is one thing. You can find interesting technology anywhere, but a compelling work environment is a little harder to find, and Shopify's got both. In case I missed anybody, that's the entire Shopify team at the moment. I want to thank all of you very much for your time and attention, and I will take questions, comments, concerns, heckles. Well, I've got a minute or so. Comments? No? Thank you all very much.